This is Chuck Worley. I am the founder and co-host of the 757 House Whisperers show. Dude, we are going old school tonight. This is back to me and Damon. This could be trouble. This could be trouble tonight, just me and you. I brought Julie, so we won't get in too much trouble.
And I forgot the 10-second safety button, so you have at least 10 seconds to remorse before it really happens.
Is that to me or you?
That's right.
Say bad words, because Julie won't. Julie won't. Yeah. She's too good for that. But yeah, this is Chuck Worley. I am here tonight. I am Worley's Home Services. We do plumbing, heating, air conditioning, ductwork, crawl space encapsulation, spray foam, insulation, attic retrofits, insulation outs. My tagline for the show is "Houses Talk to Me." I am a building science geek. I've been doing this since, early 2001. I opened up my first company. And really over the next couple of years, doing heating and air conditioning, got dragged into other things because the customer would be like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? And, once somebody finds a good contractor, they really want them to do everything. So being raised by that Navy chief in Norfolk, Mr. Edgar Worley, Charles Worley, the junior, I would be the third, he could do anything. I mean, from siding to roofing to insulation to, I remember being on his bull gang, if anybody's out of the shipyard, where you just pull wire, being on one end of the house, pulling wire through the house to the addition that I think my mom finally got him to finish that addition after 15 years. Because, mom didn't pay him. So, he just kind of did it on the side for like 15 years. I remember how she got him to finish the brickwork was, she goes, hey, here's a price for getting the brickwork done on the house that literally this addition started 15 years before. We had already moved out. My sisters, we had all moved out of the house on Nathan Avenue over in Norfolk. And he goes, what do you mean you got a price to do the brickwork? It's like $5,000-$6,000 back then. And he goes, well, I'll do it this weekend. She goes, well, no, this guy's going to come over Monday. And so all of a sudden the brickwork got done, So mom was very good at figuring out what she needed to get done. But the reason I bring that story up is my dad was a CB in the Navy, and he could do anything. So that kind of was my brainchild to how do I get into doing more things, going back, getting my master's. We've got gas piping, we've got all these other, things, ductwork, load calculation software, like where we can design ductwork, we can design systems to be the right size. Got a lot of people in my company that were certified in BPI, which is Building Performance Institute, which is blower door testing, negative pressure testing, infiltration, which is where I got into spray foam. And spray foam is phenomenal. I just put some in my house. We have a 1936 farmhouse that I know I talk a lot about. But fixing that old thing, it was like a wind tunnel in that thing, So everything that's kind of how my company has kind of gone from, well, how'd you get from a heat pump to doing spray foam, So that's kind of how it morphed in my head and eventually into my company. But before we really get started on the show, like I said, that was all about Worley's Home Services. I want to introduce my co-hosts, Justin with Pyramid Roofing. Michael Davenport and I have been friends for 30 plus years. He's a co-owner of CVP, Custom Vinyl Products, windows and doors. That is their specialty. They can install them, they can sell them. They run from Richmond pretty much to a little bit into Carolina. Albin Co., remodeling homes. He specializes in doing kitchens, bathrooms, additions, pretty much all about the mechanics of building a house. So new construction also. Cindy Rawl, been friends for years and years. Alpha Pest Solution. She is the only woman with a license to kill. She is not hiring out for taking out spouses, but she does kill bugs, all of them. So, but Jack Keller with Legacy Painting, and he's our young buck of the team. He's 25 years old, runs a great business. I think he's told me last week or week before last, he just hired his 6th employee. And, at 25 years old, I know I was not owning my own company. I was working at the shipyard, I think, and the apprentice school, Newport News Shipyard Apprentice School. So really proud of him. He does a great job. He's done several jobs for friends of mine, so I know he does a good job because I do follow up on those jobs to make sure he does a good job. If you're going to be on our show, my show, I want to make sure that you're a character, integrity, and always do the right thing type of guy. So those are our people. Tonight, I would like you to call in and ask questions. We have some trivia questions, but call in and ask questions about anything having to do with the house. I am a building science geek. There is not much that I don't know about houses. Being raised by a CB, anybody in the Navy knows what the CBs do, and that's can do. They do everything. So I've kind of got the same motto in business. There's not much that we can't do. So call in, ask questions about anything. My specialty is heating and air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, spray foam, building science questions tonight. And I don't want y'all to be confused by the weather today. Just pretend that it's not 80 degrees because it's really not supposed to be 80 degrees. So we're going to start talking about tonight carbon monoxide. I actually have a friend of mine calling in, and actually it looks like he's on the line, so you can bring him in while I'm saying. So I'm bringing in a friend of mine, Tony, that I want to kind of tell his story about carbon monoxide. He's been a client for years and a friend for 20 years. We were anybody in business on the peninsula should recognize him. He ran what's called BNI, which is Business Network International, for over 20 years. Had one of the most successful franchises of BNI, where it networks businesses together. You'll have a heating and air guy, an electrical guy, a plumbing guy, a roofing guy, a banker. And I have to give him credit because I met my fiance, who was a banker in that group, 23 years ago. We met actually for the first time in our BNI group, diligence group in Newport News, Virginia. But the reason I bring Tony in is not really to talk about a networking group, but that is how we met. And then eventually started doing business back and forth together, and we put a heat pump in for him and some other work. So the reason I had him call in is he had a very, 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 and you can add some varies to that, Tony, scary situation where him and his wife had almost passed away because of a carbon monoxide leak. Can you hear us, Tony?
I got you.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So I'm going to go over to a couple things about symptoms, and you could probably confirm these, Tony. But I pulled this off of it's NCMAA. So it's NCMAA Association, right? So National Carbon Monoxide Awareness Association. There is actually such a thing that companies can get certified. So symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. Knowing carbon monoxide poisoning, moderate levels, you and your family can get headaches, become dizzy, mentally confused, and I mean more mentally confused than me and you already are, Tony, nauseated, or faint. You can even die if these levels persist for a long time. Low levels can have shortness of breath, mild nausea, mild headaches, and may have longer-term effects in your health, which we pray that you did not have. But since many of the symptoms are familiar to those of flu or food poisoning or other illnesses, you may not think that CO poisoning could cause this, but it really does. One of the examples that they're telling you, get fresh air immediately. If you know or think this is even possible, open doors, open windows, turn off carbon monoxide appliances, leave the home, go to the emergency room, tell a physician if you suspect any kind of CO poisoning that has occurred. You can get it diagnosed in blood testing, which is done soon after exposure. Do your symptoms occur only in the house? So that means I had a customer that had some in his room over the garage. He felt really sick in his room over his garage where his office was. And when he left there or went to his office or left the house, he actually felt better. I'm like, bro, you possibly
Makes sense. I feel sick when I go to the office too.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody in the household complaining of similar symptoms? Anybody symptoms appear at the same time? You know, are you using fossil fuel appliances in the home? Has your appliances been inspected lately? Which, of course, Worley's Home Services can do that. We have carbon monoxide detectors. We can really check that stuff. But this was a very serious situation. And I could tell people until I'm blue in the face, Tony. I could tell people, hey, look, you can die from it. Hey, look, it's like flu-like symptoms. Hey, look, you can pass out. Hey, look, you can get dizzy. And they're like, yeah, I'm just sick. I got food poisoning. I don't feel well. But I feel like your story about you and your wife is so significant and so powerful that I thought it would be worth you spending some time talking to our listeners on the air of, hey, look, this is a public service announcement from the 757 House Whisperer, Worley's Home Services. Just kind of listen. This is real. You can die from this stuff. Now, the funny thing is there's only about 600 people a year, less than 1,000 people a year die from carbon monoxide poisoning. But tens of thousands of people go to the emergency room thinking they got the flu, they got sick, they got symptoms of this or that. But it's actually carbon monoxide poisoning.
No.
So,
scary stuff.
Go, if you want to kind of jump into your story, and I will ask the listeners, 627-7979, call in, ask questions about carbon monoxide, questions about heating and air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, building science stuff. 627-7979. I do have a trip. Let me go over this trivia question too. While Tony's telling the story, you guys can call in. What number president was Kennedy, and what year did he die? And that is, of course, JFK. What year did he die, and what number president was he in the United States? And this is a tribute to my father. What was the official birth date of the Continental Navy? And don't confuse it. Oh, you were in the Navy too, right? So
right.
Don't confuse Navy Day in the United States, because that is observed in October too. But this is the official date of the Continental Navy. So, all right. Go ahead. You guys call in and ask any questions. We got coffee gift cards for you if you call in and ask any questions about your house or answer any trivia questions. So while Tony's kind of telling us his very serious story about how serious carbon monoxide is, I'm going to give you guys time to call in. That's 627-7979. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
Hey, Chuck. Good to talk to you again. Hey, yeah, so every symptom that you mentioned, my wife and I had them all. But here's the sad part. We didn't know. By the time you have all of those symptoms, it's almost too late. So back in 2018, we had a snowstorm. We live in Gloucester. And there was a snowstorm on December 10th. We remember very clearly. And that was on a Sunday. So that Monday morning, so what I normally do, I went out to the shed, grabbed my generator, pulled it out, hooked the cord up, ran it in through the kitchen window, which is just like maybe 5 or 6 feet above the generator. But I did not move the generator 25 feet away from the house, which is what I normally would do. So I thought I was being smart, ran the cord in there. I put towels in the window track, closed the window, and I thought everything was good. Had everything plugged in. We had lights and refrigerator. So the next day, my wife and I both felt nauseated. We both felt dizzy. But we didn't think nothing of it. We kind of went on with our day. And that evening, I had to go to the Remodeling Club here in Gloucester because we were having our big Christmas dinner. So when I left the house, I was feeling better. My wife stayed in the house. So Monday night, I came back. So here's where it gets scary. So Tuesday morning, the next day, about 6:30 in the morning, I got up and I go into the bathroom, and I did just what Chuck said there. I passed out at the toilet. And I woke up, and I was at a point where I could not even yell for my wife. But here's the sad part. I didn't know anything. I didn't think anything was wrong. So I got up, had a headache. I put some aspirin in my hand, and the aspirin fell out of my hand. I had no motor control of my hand. But my thought was not, oh, crap, I just dropped the aspirin. My thought was, I've got to pick the aspirin up before my cats get it. That was my unreasonable mindset of that moment. Got the aspirin.
Cat lovers will love you for that. All the cat lovers will love you for that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so I hopped back in bed. My wife was in bed still. It was only 6:30 in the morning, and that was the worst thing we could have done, knowing the symptoms I already had. But by the time those symptoms hit me, my reasoning went out the window. You have no reasoning whatsoever about how you're feeling. You will excuse it, like Chuck said. You'll excuse it to, I've got the flu, I got a headache, I'm just, whatever it might be. You do not
I'm tired, I'm sleepy.
put carbon monoxide in the equation there. So about 9 o'clock, our power was not supposed to come on until 6 o'clock that afternoon. That would have been 9 hours, 10 hours later. And so about 9 o'clock, my wife got up, and she's talking to her daughter on the phone and telling her what happened to me. And her daughter's saying, Tony had a heart attack, call 911. My wife said to her, what's 911?
Oh,
she did
that's
not
not
know what 911 was. And her daughter had to tell her on the phone, press the 9, press the 1 twice. That's 911.
Wow.
So she did that. And 15 minutes, what actually happened was 2 of our cats actually came on the bed just crying their heads off. And that's what got my wife up, was my 2 cats, Buki, and I can't remember what the other one was. But that's what got her up, to get on the phone, call her daughter, let her know something's wrong. So about 9:15, and I did have a carbon monoxide detector. Here's another clue. If you get a carbon monoxide detector, get one that is battery backup. I had one in my house, but it was only powered by the outlet, so it wasn't working. But when the power came on at 9:15 that morning, it started blasting. And I didn't know what
I bet it was. I'll bet it was. Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, so I got out of bed. I said, well, crap, I got to go turn the fireplace off, because that's how we were keeping warm for 2 days. I got out to the fireplace, got on my hands and knees to turn it off. I couldn't get back up. I crawled. I crawled back to the bedroom. And by then, my wife had called 911. So when she told me that 911 was coming, my next thought was, oh, man, I've got to go feed my cats, because I know I'm going to go to the hospital. So, I'm big into my cats. So I got up, I fed the cats. Well, next thing I know, these firemen come through the front door wearing the gas masks, and they brought 2 ambulances. One for me, one for Elena. I couldn't even walk down the steps of my front yard. They had to carry me. So,
that's significant. That's significant, Tony. I mean, that's
so we got to
scary.
the hospital. They hooked us up to IVs. They hooked us up to where they check our blood. We were in the hospital for 8 hours. So let me tell you what blood level we had in our bodies. And I did a lot of research on carbon monoxide after this happened. The normal human body has and can handle 2.3% of carbon monoxide. 20% in your body or in your house or whatever can be considered fatal. My wife and I had 40%. So they told us that if we'd stayed in the house for 1 more hour, we would have died.
That's
every
scary.
90 minutes in the
look, guys,
hospital,
this is the 757. This is not some guy from Colorado in a basement that didn't know about it. This guy's retired chief in the Navy. I mean, sharp guy.
Right.
You just don't. I mean, it's not something that you think about every single day, especially, he had the generator. Now, we've had people put generators in garages and they open up the door to the house. Like, this is not what he did. He did it right. He got it outside. He put towels in the window. I've seen people do that 1,000 times.
Doesn't work.
It's really, really, I mean, it's kind of scary. I mean, it is.
And, another thing that I found out, too, you hear all these things like people putting their cars in the garage and they want to kill themselves and they run the car and they die from carbon monoxide. They said, if you really want to do it, put a generator in your garage and shut the door. That'll be much more effective than a car.
Yeah.
So that's a public service announcement.
Yeah. Please, we are not recommending that. We are
don't
not recommending
that. I'm just letting you know, that's how powerful a generator can be
Yeah.
in putting this stuff into your house, even though it's outside, it's 5 feet below the window, you got a towel on the track. This stuff just about killed us. And so
Yeah, I'm sure
my
those things put out
recommendation is I
more.
went on Facebook. I posted all of this. I made the story on Facebook. I said, I got to let people know. And it got a lot of good reviews and a lot of likes on it.
Well, you said it.
So
you said it to me a couple years ago, and it crossed my mind, and I called you, and you immediately were like, "Oh yeah, I would love to help," and that's fantastic, Tony. It's a public service announcement to somebody that's local. Like this is, I mean, it's Gloucester, Virginia, 757 area. Like this is somebody. This is our neighbor. And it was so simple. This could have happened to anybody in our area. This is, I don't know. I just think when it's close to home, it's kind of like the flooding down south. It's like it's right. I mean, it's so close to us. It's kind of scary that can happen to us too. But I really appreciate you helping me strengthen this public service announcement for the 757 listeners. It's really, really important. Please protect yourselves with carbon monoxide. That is gas furnaces. That is heaters. I can't tell you how many water heaters I have found where the flue pipe was knocked off of the water heater and it's just blowing into the garage. The garage is not the scary part. It's when it starts seeping into the house. But it's not just a generator. It's a car. It's a heating furnace, a water heater. Gosh, it can be anything fossil fuel. I mean, I've seen fireplaces, fire logs. It's so always when Tony was talking about a carbon monoxide detector, make sure it's backup. But even one step further than that is make sure it's a carbon monoxide monitor, because that will get down, I think, to 10 parts per million. When you walk by it, it doesn't do like an audible, but you can look down at it and it's like 10 parts per million. Wouldn't you want to know that? The fire chiefs and fire departments, I believe, and if there's any firemen listen, you guys could call in and help on this. But it's 35 parts per million. I think that is the maximum limit of parts per million in a house that they can walk in without a face shield. And again, if there's any firemen out there that want to call in and add to this, I would greatly appreciate it. But it is my understanding, 35 parts per million, they cannot walk into a house without a face shield. So,
they did.
It's important. And if 35 is a lot, I mean, I'm sure you probably had 500, 600, 700 parts per million blowing in that house.
Yeah, well, we're at 40% in our blood, and that could have been fatal.
Crazy. Yeah, that's by the grace of God, my friend. You are still here to tell us the story, and thank you, because we're trying to save some lives today. So, thank you, Tony, for taking the time out of your day to call in, and I'll definitely buy you some coffee. Let's get together.
All right, you bet. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you, Tony.
See ya.
All right. Hey, who is that? Gary, we'll be right back to you as soon as we have this break. This is Chuck Worley with the 757 House Whisperer show. We just coming back from our break. Houses Talk to Me. Call in, ask any questions about your house. Try and stump the expert. 757-627-7979. 627-7979. Or you can text me a question at 955-9415. That's 955-9415. You could text me questions. You could call in 627-7979. We did have someone call in about the trivia question. I forget what his name was. He can call back in on the Kennedy. But here's the trivia questions again. What number president was Kennedy, and what year did he die? So what was the official birth date of the Continental Navy, not to be confused with Navy Day in the United States, which is observed in October. So, the official birth date of the Continental Navy. It was a long, hundreds of years ago. It was a long, long time ago. So, anyway, call in with those trivia questions. I didn't think they were that hard. I kind of give you some easy ones with the Kennedy. But call in 627-7979. Ask any house questions, any problems, building science issues, moisture, ductwork issues, ductwork falling off the house, blowing underneath your house, roofing, siding, doors, any type of questions that you have, gutters, any problems that you have on your house, call in and we will answer your questions. I'm going to introduce my co-host, Justin with Pyramid Roofing, Mike Davenport with CVP, Custom Vinyl Products, Windows and Doors, Albin Co. Remodeling, specializing in bathrooms and kitchen remodels, Cindy Rawl with Alpha Pest Solutions, Jack Keller with Legacy Painting. And I do want to say, I do appreciate everybody coming up to me. I had a party last weekend, client appreciation party, and I had a guy walk up to me. I don't recall his name. I don't think he gave me his name, and said, "I love your show. You have the best show on 790 AM, Ask the Expert show. You guys bring the heat." He's like, it is a great show. It's my favorite show. And that just means the world to me because I feel like we have a public service announcement show. Our goal is you call in, ask one question. Me, Mike, all these guys for 20, 30 years, except for Jack. He's only been doing it less than 10. But most of us been there. We're pretty long in the tooth. We've been fixing houses for years. We've been helping people one customer at a time for the last 20, 30 plus years. And you have this question, that question. I'm answering all these questions one-on-one. So when someone calls in to ask a question, not only are you getting the answer and I'm helping you, but I'm helping hundreds and thousands of listeners, not to be confused with 100,000 listeners, but hundreds of listeners, thousands of listeners with the same problem or similar problem, and we're able to answer their questions at the same time. So we are serving more people, and I feel like the more people that you serve, the more business that you're going to get because you're just going to keep helping people, serving people, and they're going to want to do business with you. So call in, ask any questions about the house, 627-7979. It looks like we got a listener. So let's see, advice on working around. Okay. Let's say, what's his name, Calvin?
Chris.
Chris. Okay. Sorry, I got to pull these glasses down to see long.
You need those bifocals.
They're not bifocals yet.
You need them.
Sucker.
You need that
I'm not a bifocal yet. I'm 56 last week, so not quite to Mike Davenport's age, where he's got to be that long in the tooth where he needs,
We won't all get there.
bifocal. Yeah, well, I hope to get there, just not yet. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, and Mike, thank you for making the words a lot bigger on the screen so I can see them. Thanks, Mike. But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I once took care of a gentleman that had been found from a suspension rope on and he was on in pink.
You're breaking up a little bit. Can you get to a better area?
It's like an unfinished Mad Lib.
Yeah, it's like you're going underwater. It's like,
How about now?
That's much better.
Okay, so yeah, I took care of a gentleman that was found hanging from a suspension rope next to a chimney. And he had been painting the chimney, and apparently he was downwind of the exhaust, and he became unconscious because he had inhaled a bunch of carbon monoxide.
That is. Are you a fireman? Is that you said you came to help, or you just happened to be walking by?
No, I'm a physician.
Oh, you're a physician. Okay. Well, that's I was like, I was trying to. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Did the gentleman survive or just
he
pass
did survive,
out?
or?
Yes, he did. He had to be treated with hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Oh my goodness, that is scary. That is scary.
Now, what does the hyperbaric do? Push the oxygen back into your blood?
This carbon monoxide has a strong effect for hemoglobin, and it changes the hemoglobin and keeps it pink
Gotcha.
or red, so that the person will come in unconscious and pink.
Wow.
And so what hyperbaric oxygen therapy does is it displaces the carbon monoxide from the hemoglobin molecule.
Gotcha. That makes sense, because I understand the carbon monoxide attaches to the hemoglobin in your blood, making, basically layman's terms, stopping your blood from transporting oxygen. So you go to sleep, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not good.
Look at you. We thought you were just a DJ.
I learn a few things over the time. I mean, well, that's the thing. I don't even have many or any gas or LP appliances, natural gas or liquid propane appliances. But most of the people I talk to that do have no idea about getting them maintenance or having them inspected. Whether it's a water heater, they go, "My water heater? What do you mean? My stove? It's 20 years old."
Yeah, if you the basic way, because you're right. I mean, I've had homeowners say, "I'm not even sure if I have gas or not." I was like, do you get a bill from a gas company? I mean, if you're propane, you're going to get a propane company.
Here's your sign.
I mean, right. Well, I got to be nicer than that, right? But yeah, that's kind of factual, right? So if you got a natural gas, Virginia natural gas bill, you have something in your house that's putting off carbon monoxide, right? So you always want to stay alert to that. So if you haven't had a furnace inspected or whatever, so you live over in Suffolk. How old is your house?
Oh, I live in
Sorry, I lost him again.
Deep under the sea.
Yeah.
Under the sea.
Yeah, he's sorry we lost you again.
I don't live in a house, but I travel the country in an RV.
Oh, no kidding. Those are a little dangerous too. They got carbon. Well, they have propane in the Freon, which that actually is becoming the new Freon. The propane is now in the Freon, the new Freon that was supposed to start January of 2025, but has been pushed back a little bit. It's still in 2025, but yeah, they're putting propane in Freon now, which I don't know this a great idea, but yeah, RVs can be, I mean, people die in RVs too from carbon monoxide. So yeah, you have to be careful in those too, but that's pretty cool. What a cool job traveling across the country in an RV. That's awesome. My fiance would love to travel in a RV across the country. We have a good friend of ours who, she calls it a rock star bus. He has a rock star bus, and he goes from one end. I mean, it's like a 40, 50-foot RV. I mean, you know, rock stars who drive around in these
tour
RVs.
Bus.
Yeah, it's a tour bus.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, the only thing, he doesn't play music, but he rides in the cool RV across the country. But yeah, he'll call us from Bend, Oregon, and all the cool wine places on the West Coast. But they have a great time traveling. So that's a lot of fun. Well, thank you, Chris, for calling in and sharing that. Yeah, if you're a roofer and you're walking you're sitting next to a carbon monoxide coming out of a flue pipe, you can 100% pass out right there on the roof. So anywhere you see an exit, well, thank you, Chris, for that. That's a great example of, if you have, I have a tankless water heater on the outside of my house. I'm not sitting there, smelling the gas. I smell gas when I walk past it, but you can't just sit there and work next to it, because carbon monoxide is coming off of that tankless water heater. If you have an exhaust coming off your house from a 90% gas furnace, those are PVC. Those you need to be alert. Normally, you'll have two. One's that pulls oxygen in and or outside air in, and then the other one would be blowing carbon monoxide out. You can't just sit there and stick your mouth on that pipe, right? So you got to be cognizant of, this is carbon monoxide. I might not want to sit out here next to this exhaust. and on the roof too. If you're on the roof.
Well, Chuck, this has got me thinking. And with Worley's Home Services, who we're here live this hour. It's now 6:46, and we are taking them open phone calls. But with Worley's Home Services, and as well as Alpha Pest Solutions with Cindy, you guys go under houses all the time. And it's my understanding that carbon monoxide, while being scentless and odorless, rather, it's a heavy gas. So like if you're laying on the floor and sleeping on the floor, you're going to get sick or succumb to the fumes quicker. What about underneath of a house? I mean, how often does that?
So
leak
I've
into
walked
there?
into. That's a great question. I've gone into houses. Do you remember the old floor furnaces? They're in the middle of the house,
yeah.
right?
The big
They're
grate on the floor.
Big grate. You put your socks on it to dry your socks when they got wet. Put your boots on them to dry. Normally, as kids, you run across them with no socks and you light up your feet.
You can't
it's like
sneak
walking
out.
across coals.
Yeah, you can't sneak out, in the middle
Not
of the night
without
with those.
socks on. Yeah, you burn yourself. But so I have gone onto houses with floor furnaces that the flue pipe was literally disconnected and pumping carbon monoxide into the house. Oil furnaces, gas, propane, all those furnaces. There is some gas furnaces underneath of a house. It's not common anymore. It's not really code. You can put a 90% gas furnace underneath a house, and the only reason that you can do that is because you can run fresh air from outside. So a 90% gas furnace pulls fresh air from outside and then pumps out the exhaust, right? So you can pull it from outside of the crawl space, and that's
it's a closed
typically
system,
So I actually a friend of mine up in Kings Mill up in Williamsburg. This is probably about 10 or 12 years ago. He's getting a price for a gas furnace. Good friend of mine, Larry Dantzler, referred me to him up here in Williamsburg. So I go over to the house, and he has 3 or 4 guys giving him prices for a gas furnace and air conditioner. And I said, well, he said, your price is a little bit higher than the other guys I had in here. So I said, I just want apples to apples, oranges to oranges, right? So I said, I just want to make sure everybody else is quoting a 90% gas furnace. And he goes, well, no, why would they do that? I have an 80% gas furnace now. I said, because, sir, you had your crawl space encapsulated. So the square footage underneath your house is not enough that it will pull enough fresh air for the furnace. Well, what do you mean? No one else quoted me anything. I said, well, I'm not going to kill your family. I'm not being rude. I'm being real. And it shook him. Like, what are you talking about? So I showed him the poor encapsulation. By the grace of God, I mean, literally by the grace of God, this crawl space was done very badly. So it was still leaking, right? If they'd have encapsulated it like we encapsulated it, or, would have encapsulated it, something bad would have happened. But that is the power of having a company that does more than one system. We go in and look at the heating and air conditioning. My guys know encapsulations. They understand, hey, we can't put a gas furnace in an encapsulated crawl. It's like you can't put a furnace in a closet in a bedroom. Why? Well, because you sleep there. Like, it's dangerous. Like, you can't, it's against code, right? So a lot of guys, they'll just slap it in, and they would have not pulled a permit. It wouldn't have got caught. I was the only company of 5 companies that even noticed enough to give them a quote on a 90% furnace. So he goes, well, I'm going to call all those people back and get quotes for 90% furnace. I said, okay, if you feel safe with that.
Yeah, if you'll sleep well.
Yeah,
No, please, no pun intended.
No one else noticed. So why would you give them an opportunity to kill your family again? Like, this is awful. This is very serious. And this is not like rocket science stuff. This is basic knowledge of heating and air conditioning. You can't just put a gas furnace in an encapsulated crawl space or a closet or a small closet. You'll notice in some of you guys in older houses, you'll notice there's a register in the floor and there's a register in the ceiling. Why is that? So you could pull fresh air from the attic and from the crawl space, because you need both in a small closet. You have to have enough fresh air being pulled in, outside air being pulled in to where the furnace is, because the furnace needs air. It needs oxygen in order to burn. So anyway, that was, God, like I said, 12 years ago, but I remember it. I mean, I could see his face. He was like,
Well, and the sad thing is you could probably find a dozen
Needless
or more
to say,
companies.
we did get the job. But, I mean, why would you trust any company that didn't know their business? It just blows me away.
Yeah, and the sad thing is there's dozens of companies you could probably run across that'll just go, well, we're just replacing what used to be there. If it was good enough once, it's good enough again.
It's grandfathered.
Yeah,
no, it's not grandfathered. No. The house has changed. You encapsulated the crawl space, or you insulated, or you spray foamed, or houses change. Houses settle. Houses are changing every year. I have people talk all the time, well, my house has been fine for 30 years. I've been here for 30 years. I was like, well, 30 years ago, my body worked a lot better than it did 30 years ago. I wake up just stiff. So houses change too. They settle. We put a more high-efficient air conditioner in. Chris, reminded me about the new propanes going into the new Freons. Houses change. Humidity is so much easier to control with these newer inverter type compressors, 2-stage compressors. The humidity is so much easier to control with these new air conditioners on the market now. The new propane, they say it's a low fire rate, starter rate, I think it's called. But I don't know. It's been in RVs, like he said. I'm glad he brought up RVs because that reminded me. It's, RVs for refrigerators, not necessarily air conditioners. But, so it is been in refrigerant cycles for a long time. But I don't know. I'm not a fan. But it is safe. They're testing it. It's within 2025, 26, everybody's going to go to these. But I have had this question start up a couple times. Some customers were afraid to buy the R410As, which have literally been on the market since the 90s. I think in 2001, when I opened up my first company, I made a decision, I'm not selling R22 anymore, which was a big decision because people were floating around, well, there's going to be a better product. And, it took them 25 years later, there is finally a better product.
R22 is what we had in the coolant,
That's correct.
10 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
so R22 was put out, it's been around since the 70s, I guess, 80s. But in the early 90s, when I was in the apprentice school in 1993, I think it was, is when they rolled out the R20 or R410A and stuff. But R410A is a great product. It's been around 20 years. They phased out R22 4 years ago completely, 3 years ago completely, but they phased it out.
I feel like it was before COVID.
20 years ago. Yeah, it was before COVID. Yeah. But they phased it out and phased it out and phased it out. 10, 15 years later, we could still get it. And then when they stopped selling it, they stopped producing it, they were still refurbishing it. Like, because we were pulling Freon out of systems and sending it back to DuPont or whoever. I think it was DuPont. But, which is a great, I got to pay you for the Freon and then I got to pay you to take the Freon back. So that's a great deal for somebody. But yeah, so definitely don't worry about buying R410A now. It's a good product. It's going to be around for 20 years, 10 years. You'll be able to buy this Freon for years and years, just like we did with R22. Like I said, they started phasing R22 out in the 90s, the late 90s, and I could buy it up to, you could still buy it now, but it's probably $5,000 a pound. But I am just being facetious.
So
but it's not cheap.
Don't be scared about the 2025 changes because it'll be a 20-year change.
Yeah, so they're gonna probably take a year to phase out and go 100% into the propane-based Freons. But it's just, I'm not that worried about it. I think the R410A is going to be around a long time. So you don't have to worry about, changing out the to the new stuff, because it's still going to be around. And if you have no AC and they're not completely stocked up, the suppliers are not completely stocked up, where it's available, right? That they can even purchase, we can even purchase the stuff. So it's not laying on the shelves waiting. So, but yeah, most of the companies, we are providing products with American Standard and Rude, and they're on top of it. It's their business, right? I mean, they have to be on top of it.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, the ever-changing world that is the home, and HVAC changes with that. Now, does that change the fact that you back 10, 20 years ago, you used to be able to just change half the system, whether it's the indoor air handler or the outdoor condenser? Can you still do that, or are we away from those days?
In 2001, I decided to be a great contractor that wasn't just out to make money. And there was guys out there swapping outdoor units. I mean, they could do it, $2,000 in 2 hours. And I just felt like, putting a 15-year-old air handler and putting a brand new condenser on it, will it work? Yes. I just felt dirty and I wasn't going to do it. I may have done it once or twice in 20 years for someone selling their house or what, but it was not a common practice for me. I just felt like it was the wrong thing to do. But swapping out the outdoor units pretty much for the last, I'd say 5, 6, 10 years, the people mostly are changing out the entire system because that's the right thing. The EPA is not going to certify an air conditioning system that has a 5-year-old, even a 2-year-old furnace. EPA certifications go with the air conditioner. It's an EPA certification where it's this furnace with this blower motor, with this coil, with this outdoor unit. This is the system that has 15.2 SEER. And these new SEER ratings are impossible to get if you don't have every single piece of equipment brand new.
Got to do it right if you're going to do it.
They are nice. I mean, staged equipment, it's really efficient stuff.
And on the next show, we got to talk about mini splits, the new world of ductless heating and cooling.
Yeah, I just did my whole house. I got 5 mini split heads in my house. It is a fantastic way because I don't have to deal with ductwork now. So,
Nice.
But yeah, let's. This is the 757 House Whisperers show. Please remember us, 757. Write this number down, 955-9415. Text me, call me, and ask questions about the house, and we can help you. Thank you.
The preceding program was sponsored and paid for by Worley Home Services, who's entirely responsible for its content.